There is a part of you that needs certain people to suffer for what they did. And there's another part of you that can't stomach the idea of anyone burning forever. And you think these two parts of you are at war. They're not. They're both telling you the truth. You don't actually know what you believe about hell. You just know what you've been told. Look, the picture in your head, the fire pits, the screaming, the demons with pitchforks, the levels going down forever. That picture didn't come from the Bible. It came from an Italian poet who wrote a book in the year 1320. His name was Dante. The book was called Inferno. And it shaped what your grandmother believed, what your Sunday school teacher believed, and what every horror movie about hell has copied for 1,700 years. The Bible doesn't describe hell that way. It barely describes hell at all. There are 4 different words in the original languages that the English Bible smashes together into one cartoon. And what most people fight about under the word hell is actually an argument about translation choices. But here's the part nobody on the loud sides of this fight wants to admit. Almost nobody who ever has a strong opinion about hell has actually studied it. They've inherited it from a person they never read, from a movie they half remember, and from a sermon that scared them when they were 8 years old. You've been carrying a question about hell that you don't feel safe asking out loud, maybe for years. By the end of this, you're going to know where the picture of hell in your head actually came from, why both sides of this fight need you to pick fast, and what the church has actually been saying for 1,700 years. I am going to give you an answer, a real one, the kind that both tribes are going to be mad about. Here's what I've watched happen for more than 30 years. You sit with 2 people who disagree about hell, and underneath the theology, there's almost always something else going on. One of them needs a certain person to be in hell because of what that person did to them, to someone they love. Hell, for them, is the only place where that person can finally get what's coming. The theology fits because the need came first. The other one needs hell to either not exist or to just end, because they have someone they love who didn't believe, someone who died without ever turning towards what they spent their whole life turning away from. They can't sleep thinking that that person is in eternal torment. So they reach for a theology that makes that pain bearable. And then there's a third type. And this one's sneaky. They don't have anyone specific in mind. They just need the rules to be clear. They need hell to be exactly as harsh or exactly as merciful as their tribe says it is. Because if they start asking questions, well, they might lose their seat at the table. The fear isn't about hell. It's about belonging. 3 different people, 3 different positions. And all of them think they're arguing about doctrine, and they're not. They are arguing about a wound. Now, here's the part where I have to come clean. I'm a pastor. I've been one for a long time. And the only reason I waited to say it is because if I led with it, half of you would have already decided what kind of show this is. So I waited until you'd already seen me think out loud. And now I get to tell you what's coming next. I'm going to take you to the Bible. Now, not to win the argument, but to show you something that I didn't see for years. Look, years ago, I was teaching a series on heaven and hell. And after one of the sessions, a man came up to me. He wasn't a member, didn't know him. He was visiting with his family who attended my church. And he told me that he was struggling to trust God at all, and that his ideas about heaven were a big part of why he was struggling. I leaned in. I said something I'd said 1,000 times before. I said, the Bible can actually be pretty helpful on questions like this. And he looked at me, he said, okay, here's one for you. Can people in heaven see the people who are in hell? Well, I lit up because I knew this one. I told him about Luke chapter 16, the rich man and Lazarus, that the rich man dies and ends up in torment and looks up across the chasm and sees Lazarus in comfort. They can see each other. They can even talk. And I delivered that with all the confidence that 7 years of college and seminary will give a young pastor. And then I watched his face fall. He looked at me like I just kicked him in the chest. And he said, almost in a whisper, my father is going to hell. I know he is. He hated everything about God his whole life. So how am I supposed to be happy in heaven if I have to watch him burn? Wow. Man, I had no answer. The 7 years of school, a stack of books in my office, sermons I'd preached, and in that moment, standing across from a man who was actually trying to find a way to trust God, every page of that was useless. And that's the day I learned a phrase I've never been able to shake. It's possible to be biblically informed and pastorally useless. I was biblically informed. I had a verse, I had a citation, I had the right answer to the wrong question. And I just made a hurting man more hopeless than he was when he walked in. And here's what I wish I would have said. Instead of, let me tell you about Luke 16, I wish I would have said, I never thought about this before. That's a great question. Can we get together again? I want to think and study before I open my mouth. But I couldn't. Because somewhere in the years of my training, somebody quietly taught me that saying I need to study was the same as losing. It isn't. It's the beginning of giving an honest answer. After that conversation, I went back and I did the homework. The homework I should have done before I ever stood up to teach. And what I found surprised me. The English word hell doesn't exist in the original Bible. It's a translation choice that smashes 4 words, different words, into one. Watch this. There's Sheol in the Hebrew Old Testament. It just means the grave, the place of the dead. Good people went there, bad people went there. It wasn't about punishment, it was about being dead. The Greek New Testament uses the word Hades. Same exact idea. It's the same word that's just a different language. Just the place where dead people go. There's Tartarus, used exactly one time in the whole Bible. 2 Peter. And it's a Greek mythology word for where fallen angels are kept, not human beings. And then there's Gehenna. This is the word Jesus actually uses when he talks about hell. And here's what gets you. Gehenna isn't an idea. It's a place. I mean a real geographical valley right outside of Jerusalem. I've been there. The Valley of Hinnom. Terrible things happened in that valley in the Old Testament times, including the burning of children in pagan worship. Now, by Jesus' day, it had become a smoldering trash dump. Fires that never went out, worms that never died because the fire kept burning the trash. And so when Jesus says in Mark 9, if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It's better to enter eternal life with only one hand than to go into the unquenchable fires of hell with 2 hands. Oh, that word hell is Gehenna, the trash valley outside the city, the place where the unredeemable goes to be burned up. So what do you do with Gehenna? With all the warnings Jesus actually gives us. Now, here's what the church has said for 1700 years. Not just the loud church, the thoughtful church. Augustine, Aquinas, Edwards, Lewis, East, West. They didn't agree on every detail, but they landed in something like the same place in saying, hell is real, hell is conscious, hell is forever. And listen carefully. It is worse than Dante ever imagined. Not because of the fire. The fire was always a metaphor. Jesus reached for the worst image his listeners knew, the burning trash dump outside their city, to point at something that the trash dump couldn't capture. What is hell in the historic Christian understanding? It is a soul finally getting what it always insisted it wanted. Every person who's ever lived has had two voices in them. One that wants God and one that says, I'd rather do this without him. I'd rather run my own life. I'd rather decide what's good and what's evil. We've all heard the second voice. The question is whether you're still listening when the curtain falls. C.S. Lewis put it like this in The Great Divorce. The doors of hell are locked on the inside. The people there don't want to leave. They spent their whole lives becoming the kind of person who can't bear God's presence. And in the end, God gives them what they've been asking for. That's not God being cruel. That's God being honest. He honors the choice. This is where the love wins crowd loses the thread. They confuse God's love with God's tolerance. But love that overrules the will isn't love. It's coercion with a softer name. The fire and the brimstone crowd lose it on the other side. They took the metaphor and made it the mechanism. They turned hell into a divine torture chamber. That isn't historic Christianity. That's a horror movie with Bible verses sprinkled all over it. Hell, in the orthodox understanding, is what happens when God finally, regretfully, gives a soul what it's been demanding. The agony isn't God burning the soul. It's the soul being what it chose to be. The fire is on the inside. Now, remember that man in my church. Remember his father? Remember the question that broke me? How can I be happy in heaven if I have to watch my father burn? Here's the answer I should have given him. The answer Augustine gave. The answer that the church has given for centuries. In the resurrected state, you don't see your father with the eyes you have now. You see him with the eyes of God. Your grief right now is real and it is good. It's part of what makes you the kind of person God can save. God doesn't mock that grief. He honors it. But on the other side, you will see the whole story. You're going to see what your father did, and you're going to see what God did to call him home. And you will trust the goodness of God in a way that you can't trust it now, because there you'll have the whole picture. Your father's hell will not be your prison. God's goodness will be your peace. That's the answer I didn't have when I needed it. I have it now. I'll never get to give it to him, but I get to give it to you. Friend, here's what I want you to do. Stop performing a hell that you don't actually believe in. Drop the cartoon. It was never the gospel. It was Dante. Pick up what the church has actually said. Hell is real. Hell is conscious. Hell is forever. The soul finally being able to choose to be with no God to interrupt its self-worship. This matters for you, for the people you love, for the people you've written off. The church didn't keep saying this for 1700 years to scare you. It kept saying it because pretending it isn't true doesn't make it not true. Paul wrote something in 1 Corinthians 13 that I've come back to 1,000 times. In verse 12, he says, "Now we see things imperfectly, like puzzling reflections in the mirror, but then we will see everything with perfect clarity. And that I know now is partial and complete, but then I will know everything completely, just as God knows me completely." Imperfectly, partial, incomplete. I don't know every detail. I don't know how your father's story ended in the last moments. Only God and he witnessed. But I know what the church has consistently said. And I'd rather stand with 1,700 years of saints who actually read their Bibles than with the loud voices on either side who decided last Tuesday that they had it all figured out. You came in carrying a question you didn't think you were allowed to ask. You stayed in the room. You watched both tribes get challenged. And you didn't pick a jersey. You let 1,700 years of careful thought meet you where you were. That man at my church, I never saw him again, and I've thought about him for almost 20 years. I hope somebody told him what I should have. Your grief is real. Your father's choice is his, and the God who is good will give you peace on the other side that you can't imagine on this one. That's what I should have said. That's what I just got to give to you instead. You walked in afraid of the wrong thing. And you're walking out afraid of the right thing. And trusting the only one who can keep you from it. You are leaving better than I found you. You don't have to defend Dante. You don't have to be the angry pastor of your childhood. You don't have to be the love wins Christian who lost their nerve. You can stand where the church has stood with clear eyes and a humble heart, with the courage to say something is true, even when both sides are going to be mad at you for saying it. Think clearly, live faithfully. There are hard things all around us, and the question isn't, will it get to me, but what will I become because of it? Let's navigate it together with grace and grit and come out whole. Grace with grit. I'll see you on the next one.